The brand Supreme that we all know and love was sold for $2.1 billion in 2020. Yes, that's billion with a B, and it was all started by a man named James Jebbia. And so I would like to tell you his story because there's a very profound message and learning to be learnt from the story. You're listening to the Street Cred podcast, the show laser focused on helping streetwear brand owners turn their side hustle into a full-time career. I'm Elijah Delport. And that's exactly what James Jebbia has done. In fact, he's gone far beyond just turning his brand into a career. He turned it into a legacy. And so I'm going to share with you at the end. I'm going to tell you his story. And at the end of this, I'm going to share a message with you that I find very profound on my own entrepreneurship journey. And I trust that you will too, especially being in the fashion industry, to have a fellow fashion entrepreneur like James Jebbia, and his story can be very inspiring. So I want to take you back all the way to the beginning. James Jebbia was born in Crawley, England. And in 1983, he moved to New York City with a dream. And like many who moved to New York City, it's very tough in the beginning. He was probably struggling to make ends meet. He worked odd jobs just to cover the rent. And this was in the 80s, and like now it's even worse. And so he did what he could because he was passionate. He'd grown up in the fashion scene, and he'd grown up around skaters, and that was the culture he knew and he loved. And so he wanted to bring part of that, maybe a big part of that, a reality in his career and in what he believed his mission in life was to be. And so that led him to opening a retailer called Union NYC in 1989. And it was they were selling British streetwear, and they were connecting with the skate community. And it was through this that he expressed a lot of himself. You know, he was a foreigner in New York City, and he was expressing his British heritage through the brand. And I think it was something quite fresh on the scene because, well, at first it started slow, but eventually it started to pick up some steam. You know, there's a famous interview clip of James Jebbia, when he was much younger. And he is speaking as the owner and founder of the Union NYC retail store. Now, this is where a lot of people's stories stop because they see a bit of success and then that's it, right? And that's not to say that it was all easy going in the beginning. But the thing is with James is that he wanted more. He had bigger dreams in his career than just a small-time New York City streetwear retailer. No, he wanted to build something big, and he knew he was meant to do something bigger than this. And so that's when in 1991 he left Union, he passed it on to whoever was next, and he went to help run Stussy in New York City with Sean Stussy. And this was in the really early stages of Stussy. I mean, 1991. When was Stussy founded? Let me have a look really quick. Stussy was founded in 1984. So this is only 7 years after the brand was founded. So, I mean, think about how far are you along in your brand? And even, I know for a fact in Australia, there's very few brands that are older than 7 years old. There's only a handful. And so this is, we as a country, as a kind of a side note, but we as a country in Australia are in our early stages ourselves. So this was in the early days of Stussy compared to the heights that they've grown to now. But I think James, in that period of time, he still faced a bit of uncertainty about where he wants to be, what he wants to be doing, and who he wants to be doing with. And so he left, same with Sean Stussy, because Sean Stussy left the brand and so James decided to venture out on his own. So James Jebbia decided to start his own thing. And so he started a little store on Lafayette Street in New York City. I don't know how to pronounce it. Lafayette. I'm going to call it Lafayette Street in New York City. And Lafayette Street wasn't known as much then as it is today. But it would become known as the place where Supreme begun, because that's exactly what James Stussy did. It was on that street that he founded his store, his own clothing brand. It's not just a retailer. It's not someone else's clothing brand, but it was his own. And so it was a minimalist store, and it was pretty risky. And the other thing is that it was very sparse with inventory. So for that reason, like, it wasn't like the mega brand it is today in the beginning. Like in 1994, it was still, it was really early days for streetwear. And this is like when the movement is being launched of streetwear and streetwear fashion. And so James Jebbia was a real, one of the early torchbearers for this movement. And so there were some initial doubts. But the thing is, like, as it continued in the years that followed, the Supreme store became a real haven for New York City skaters. It's really amazing that when brands are able to build a community around what they're doing, the heights that they're able to reach, it is really far beyond any other company, any other business that's just out there to make a profit. Because James Jebbia was about more than that. He believed in the culture. He believed in the vision. That was part of his mission and dream for what he was creating. And that's exactly what he did. And before he had any real quantity of customers, that's all the store was. You sell some t-shirts, sell some skateboards, and the skaters, they come and hang out at the store. And so this was amazing. This was something new. And look, the truth is, it's funny because we know Supreme today is the brand that sells out within 10 seconds. Literally, they do, because they sell products out within 10 seconds. They're the hype brand, if there was any. It's funny to think about that, because in the beginning, James worried about unsold stock. And so this is where he was one of the people that initiated the limited quantity drop strategy. And that was the catalyst to turning Supreme into the cultural icon that it is. And so in the early 2000s, Supreme began to expand globally, opening flagship stores in Tokyo and London and, all corners of the globe that we know of today as the fashion centers of the world. And so this was super big for streetwear because Supreme, they didn't only sell clothing, they started something new. They were really innovative in the way they went about selling, especially with the limited quantity releases. And so that brings us to 2020, when the VF Corporation acquired Supreme for $2.1 billion, which was a massive milestone for streetwear once again. And for James Jebbia, I mean, good on him. Like, he's a rich man because of it. And the takeaway from this story is this. If we think back and we go through all the moments of James Jebbia's story, he started Union NYC, and then he went to Stussy, and then he left that to start his own thing. It's this. Your first thing might not be your best thing. It took James 3 tries before he founded Supreme. And for others, it takes them 10 or more. And if I'm honest with you, I mean, I really hope it doesn't take me 10. I really hope it doesn't take me 10 tries to find my thing. Ideally, I mean, this is it. This is the first, it's the first try. However, if it does, I'll still be here. And it took 3 times for James Jebbia, and he was still there. Imagine if he gave up on the second try. So my question, or my challenge for you today, my encouragement is, what is your challenge tolerance? How many times will it take before you call it quits on your dream? Right? Are you just a one-trick pony? That first time, okay, that's it, it's up. Let me go get a job. Or are you the kind of person that has what it takes to build something? Here's the thing. This is the grit one needs to build something as big as Supreme. To not give up after the first try. And that's the profound message behind this all. That if you really want to build something worth building, to create a legacy behind what you're doing, then like James Jebbia, might take you 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times or more. But are you prepared to do that? Are you prepared to do that? So that's James Jebbia's story. I hope you found it inspiring, and that's the message I take away from it. Thanks for listening to this episode of Street Cred. I really hope you enjoyed it and found some value in it wherever you are at in your streetwear journey, whether getting started or getting established or scaling even beyond to the next level. This is my encouragement to you today to keep going, don't stop, and that really it's just about, consistency and persistence is a really big deal, because that's what sets so many people apart. Like, if there was anything, like, forget about all the marketing knowledge you've ever learned, because, at the end of the day, you can figure all that stuff out in time. You'll figure out the right stuff in time just by trying things out yourself and experimenting. So, that's the point, in time. And that's what I'm trying to get at, that, keep trying this, because in time, if you're simply able to stick out the time more than most can, you'll do and achieve more than most do. So, look, thanks for listening to this episode. If you found this valuable, you can trust that I put out other stuff into the world that's also quite valuable, and I would hope so, and I like to think that I do. And one of those things, you can find a link in the description to a community of more than 100 brand owners that you can join right now for free. Inside, there are people asking questions. There are people sharing their wins. You cannot be in this community and not be motivated to go and take action. Also, inside of this community, I have put a free streetwear marketing course. There's lots of generic marketing information on there. There's very few resources that's specifically for fashion brands, and specifically around non-product marketing, educational and entertaining content. How do you do that in your streetwear brand? Well, look, this is the opportunity for you to learn how to do exactly that. So look, if you want to you're ready to take your brand to the next level, go ahead, join us for free. Thanks again for listening to this episode. I'm Elijah Delport. I will see you tomorrow for another.